Davida Sapphire with the Leo Geeks.
And it's a Star Shadow. And today we have a special video defending Star Wars Episode 1. And we know a lot of fans, dislike or just downright hate the Star Wars prequels, but there are actually a lot of good points about them. For instance, Gundam City.
Yeah, I love that. It looks like another version of Cloud City.
Yeah, it's like a nice contrast to Cloud City. Cloud City was in the sky, and here we have this nice contrast of an underwater city, which I think is one of the good points of the film. Plus, yes, there are some spots where the effects look unfinished, but this wasn't one of the spots.
No, it wasn't. I really love the way when they're going underwater, all the creatures underneath. Even though some of the creatures look fake, it was just impressive because the CGI was terrible, but it was great for the what they had at the time, and it was quite impressive when you actually look at what they had at the time.
Yeah, for 99 effects, that was actually pretty good. Which actually leads us to our second point, our second good point of Episode 1, which might make a lot of you mad, and that is Jar Jar Binks. Yes, Jar Jar Binks was annoying. Yes, he was kind of stupid. He was out there for the kids, but he's a good point in the film and films in general, because he was among the first fully integrated CGI motion capture character to be done in films. This was before Smeagol and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. He has a lot of humor, which is kind of funny, even though he's very dumb. I do love when the Jedi are interacting with him for the first time, and what is it,
Obi-Wan?
No, the Qui-Gon. When he has him stuck onto him, and then he's walking beside him, and Obi-Wan comes over, he's like, "What is this?" You're like, "Oh, poor thing." But
actually another good thing, because Star Wars Episode 1 was the first film to have such a large supporting fully CG cast. CG characters actually interacting with the live action actors.
Yeah.
So that's also good, which leads me personally to my personal third point, and that's the Naboo cruisers. I mean, we have a lot of animator friends, and we know personally how hard it is to animate a shiny object, to get all those reflections right, and to do it in space. Sorry, man, real quick. I mean, when all the other ships are reflected in it, for me, mad respect to the Skywalker effects people.
That was pretty cool. I did love the ship. That's one of my favorite ships. But back before we totally go away from the city, I do love the way they made the design for the ship.
Oh, the Bongo.
Yeah, I love that. That was cool. That who even comes up with a design like that? That's just really cool. It's like it reminds you of something that's underwater. Whoever did that, mad respect to them, because they're awesome.
That was a pretty good design, which again just fits into the Naboo cruisers and the ship. So that was a pretty good design for the ships.
Yeah, which it was really cool. And then I love when they go inside the city, and it's like it's really good for what was
available at the time. And
I can't stop stressing that, because that's really awesome. Yes, it kind of did suck, the film, but I mean, just don't look at the sucky part. Look at the actual. You just have to give more respect to those people, because today it takes so long. Because I have a friend who's an animator, and we have a lot of friends who are animators. It takes them so long when I watch them work to put something together. Just imagine how much longer it would have taken them. And what was impressive was the city.
Coruscant?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, actually that was actually pretty cool design. Again, for what they had for the CGI at the time. Again, where in the film were several parts. At least to me personally, watching it now, a lot of the effects seem unfinished to me. But again, that's 99 CGI. It's working what they had. They did pull off Coruscant very well. It didn't come out looking fake like some of the other ones. That some of the underwater creatures, or some of the other creatures' effects, like that one creature in the pod race.
Yeah. What I did love too was seeing Jabba's family.
Oh yeah,
that was interesting to see. Because you never imagine Jabba having a family, and you're like, nah, he's just a horrible thug. But then you see his family; it's kind of cute.
Yeah, well, it was actually pretty interesting. Again, that's also something that's elaborated on further in the first Clone Wars film, where something's kind of that's kind of cute. The fact they started it there, and they decided we'll just go with his son.
One of my favorite things too was the Queen's outfits. They were really, really well designed for being a fashion design. It's really, really cool. It's something that I would love to design in films and stuff, because it's just amazing.
Yeah, the costuming.
I love the way they were inspired by Asian Hindu and stuff like that. It was like Hindu and Asian inspired a lot. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
the costume is also another kind of saving grace of this film.
Yeah.
Because again, even if you hate Natalie Portman's acting, just the costume was impressive. You know, especially how long it must have taken her to get into that every day. So the headpiece.
Yeah, the headpiece. The headpieces were really Asian and like Indian, like Hindu.
Yeah.
Which was like really, I love them, and it's something that I would love to someday work doing. And the awesome part too is what they had to use because of their budget, like the razor heads.
Oh yeah, the Jedi communicators were just razor handles and stuff like that.
And I love seeing the Jedi using computers. You just don't even.
Interesting.
You're like when you're seeing the Jedi, you're like they don't need computers, and then you just see them using computers for blood analysis, and they're doing the science of it. You're like, well, they're scientists too.
Yeah, that was an interesting part. We'll get more to the the whole science part later. The next point would be pod racing. As she mentioned, Jabba the Hutt, which Tatooine pod racing. I know a few people actually really love this sequence. A few people I've spoken to actually dislike the sequence, saying it's too long, it's too much. But personally,
that's another amazing character they made was Saboba.
Oh yeah, I love that character. I know it's kind of points the fact that he walks on his feet and his hands and yeah. But pod racing was interesting. It's something new. It's something that in all the original Star Wars trilogies that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
It's something new. People might complain about it that it wasn't it doesn't have the spirit of the original. It's not, but at least it's something new that we've never seen in Star Wars before.
I also love the fact that they put in about slavery, how it's done away with everywhere else, but you'll always find places where it'll always continue. And as sad as it is, it's like they actually made it like put in how do you say?
Yeah, they tried to put some real world politics.
Like putting a point, like trying to make you see that even though we're trying to do away with it, that there's places that's still going to be existing and stuff, and that's kind of a nice thing they did on it too. They tried to put a lot of like meanings and stuff in there and stuff that I saw. I mean, people could say, "Oh, you're just looking for meaning," but I don't know. I really do think they tried to put.
Yeah, I feel like he did try to make something, with it, which leads me to the next point, which is another one that a lot of people hate about the prequel trilogy, and that's the politics.
Oh.
I mean, for me, real quick. For me, it's interesting because the Republic, the way you hear it talked about in the original trilogy, it does sound like a very political place. It's a democracy. It's very, there would have to be, of course, senators, Congress people, governors. There would be open debates. So it's interesting to see, especially when it comes to witnessing the fall of the Republic to become an empire. You have to deal with the politics. So you just can't. It just can't be all lightsaber battles and ship races. You have to deal with some of the politics of that, which is what I really liked about it.
Which is what I was going to say. I don't see the problem with the politics in there. I mean, he put meanings of other stuff in there, so why not have stuff about politics?
Yeah, I mean, because it serves a story. Because I mean, like I said, how if you put all that to the background, you really won't be able to get to how you probably can, but how are you going to really explain how the Republic fell
Another thing is,
to become an empire?
If you put war in there, you can't just have the war and the battles. When war comes, there's politics behind it, and there's all this and that, and there's just red tape. So if you think about it, he's just putting some reality of what happens when wars happen and all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, which leads me to, I say more points.
No.
Which leads me to my final point, which is the midichlorians. Now, this is something a lot of fans I've spoken to hate. They're saying it's explaining the magic away and all that other stuff. But we have to take into account that during the eras of Episode 1, 2, and 3, the Jedi are big. The Jedi are everywhere. Everybody knows about the Jedi and the Force. And by the time A New Hope rolls around, they're myths now. They're myths. They're legends. They're these things that nobody's seen for years. They're all supposed to be dead. So again, even the Force Awakens is touched upon that they become stories. I believe Rey mentions one time that they're they're legends. They're myths.
It kind of reminds me of like King Arthur, and they were real, but they just became myths, and then it just blew up into a big old thing that.
Exactly. So by the time the original trilogy comes around, that's all they are. Mythic heroes, myths. Like King Arthur and his Holy Grail type myths.
Yeah.
So, maybe if the midi-chlorians were common knowledge during the Republic era, that knowledge might have, faded away with the death of the majority of the Jedi. And, sorry, real quick. And then, from then, the Force went from this kind of scientific thing to just becoming nothing but as Han Solo calls it, a hokey space religion, in a sense. So it's not really explaining the magic away. Again, like I said, if you take into account the era these films take place in.
One thing I do love about before we end it, is about the Gungans, is that they look like such a dumb race that has nothing. And then they have this battle, and they have those really cool bull fire things with the cool shields. You're like, wait.
Yeah, that is
they
interesting.
Look dumb.
They look primitive, but
Yeah, but they have all this cool technology.
Again, which leads back to what you were saying about meaning.
Yeah.
That's kind of, like saying don't judge by appearances in a way, because, it's kind of during the beginning of the movie, you're kind of led to believe that the reason that the Gungans hate the Naboo is because they think, as he says, they're so smarty with their big brains. You kind of get the feeling that the Naboo look down on the Gungans as a primitive people, but then you see they actually are a powerful race, and they are again kind of advanced. They have ships on their water back on the water city. They have those force fields. They're based off of primitive shield design. Mm. And they had catapults again, again a primitive design, but they far technologically advanced projectile capable of knocking out, battle droids. So again, leading back into what what you were saying about meanings, again, don't judge by appearances.
Because you're like, they're dumb, they can't do anything, but they're not. They're actually cool. One of the things I did love at the end was the celebration.
Oh yeah,
because the celebration had meaning. It had the meaning of. It reminded you of the Romans, how they would come in and they would have like the flowers falling,
processions,
and the Greeks, and then it reminded you of maybe the Greeks or the Romans going in, but the Greeks or Romans celebrating for another race, like the race would be Africans, because they reminded you of the Africans going in and visiting because they helped. Yeah, because the music had a lot of African meaning.
Not meaning,
but sounds.
Yeah, it sounded very
influence.
African.
That's what I mean. Not meaning, but influence. It had a lot of African influence.
And tribal influences.
Yeah, tribal influences, and it just reminded you that. But it's like when they were going in, they were getting a Roman and a Greek celebration. Because of how the flowers
like
fall.
A peace procession.
Yeah, like if you would see even Egyptians, because you know how when Mark Anthony was going in to see Cleopatra, they were throwing like this stuff. It reminded you of something like that. So it was like they have a lot of historical meaning in here that they took from in the costumes and in the way they at the end when they're celebrating and a lot of other things if you look through there. I don't remember all of them, but yeah, it has a lot of meanings from the cultures from Earth and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like again, 99 CGI was pretty good. Again, if you can look past that, even Jake Lloyd, the poor kid gets a lot of crap for the movie, but even his acting, it wasn't that. I mean, he was a little kid. He doesn't know what he's being pushed into. And I think not to bash the writing, but I think some of the fault here might lie as a bit with the writing. I mean, because if it was like just a bit tight on the writing, maybe Jake Lloyd wouldn't be getting so much crap. But
he didn't do that.
He doesn't. The other crap he gets, he doesn't actually deserve because he did a good. Considering what he was given, he did a good job with it. He pulled off the confused, scared kid who doesn't know where he's going. Which, sorry, leads me to one more point. Starting off, Darth Vader was a kid. A lot of people had beef with that. A lot of people hated that. But I liked it. You see where he comes from. Yeah, you see what influenced him to go down the path. His loss. His mother, his mother was a slave. He was a slave. He lost everything when he was sold from Gondola Hut to Waru, and obviously that's going to contribute to him down the line how he becomes in the line.
That would mess you up. I mean, you can't just you can't just come out of that being totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also another good point. Starting there, I feel personally, was a good decision to start there. You just can't start with him already old and Roger Darth Vader. You'll be like, where did this kid come from? Because, why is he going down this path?
That shows why he decided to be horrible. And I mean that if you really look into your own life and you see how people treated you and what you've had to go through in some life and like in some of our lives and all of our lives, then you think, well, there was times in my life where I wanted to turn horrible and mean to people and dark because of what they've done to you.
And even that, in a sense, justifies his distrust and his dislike of the Jedi in the end. I mean, come on, they exist in the galaxy as guardians of peace. Yet in all his life, it can seem that he's never actually seen one. They never come to help him, and even when Qui-Gon lands there, he tells him
Yeah,
he's
he
not
wasn't
there
gonna
to
help
free
him.
him. I mean, the only thing he takes him with him is because he finds out he's Force sensitive. That's the only reason he takes the kid with
Yeah,
him.
which means if he wasn't, he probably just left him.
Exactly. So you're seeing that. So obviously you're gonna have some mistrust of the Jedi. I mean, even if he's excited to be one, even if he's looking forward to training with the Jedi, somewhere in the back of his mind is gonna have some distrust toward them.
Yeah.
So that again, good
And
choice to start with him as a kid.
So his darkness and his anger all have a purpose and a reason. So that's kind of awesome to see. But yeah, and it shows that if somebody would have just come to him and
Exactly.
been with at least showed him a good way, he would have turned evil. Because really, in reality, this guy was showing him the good way, but he really wasn't. He was just like, you're training you, whatever. But in reality, you can see that nobody was really there for him.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because again, this is more of a discussion for our second part when we talk about episode 2. But just to jump into that really quickly, they do mention that Jedi aren't supposed to really feel emotions; they're supposed to keep emotions suppressed. Which again, that's more. We'll talk about that more in our second part when we defend episode 2. But yeah, I mean, he's hearing that in his life too, so obviously he's going to try and go against that somehow, especially since he was again seeing where he came from as a kid.
And if they think that if the Jedi would have helped his mother, he would have never turned evil. It was because he left her to her own fate. If you really think about it, he didn't come back and help. I mean, the Jedi didn't come back and help the mother.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
I'm not talking about Annie, but I'm talking about the Jedi. If they would have just come back and helped the mother, which nobody seemed to have cared after they got him, and they just abandoned her and just left her to her own fate.
Yeah, I have more to say about that, but again, we're going to say that for our part of episode 2.
Yes, and I know people would judge you for this, and like I can't be your friend, but Jar Jar kind of grows on you. Just a little bit by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you still think I still want to beat him, but you're like, he still grows on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, somebody can't be that clumsy. But I don't know, he just kind of grows on you, and I kind of find him to be a little tiny bit funny and humorous, and that makes up for him being sucky and lame, but or where you're just frustrated and you just want to choke him. But otherwise than that, I think he kind of does grow on you. It's kind of awesome.
And again, jumping back to the Gungans a bit before we really do close this down. It was a character that was added for the kids. So again, you have to take into account that when you watched episode 4, 5, and 6, yes, it was made like a sci-fi film, but it was also made for the kids. You watched it as a kid. So this movie was made for the kids basically for your kids. You saw Star Wars episode 4, 5, and 6. You want your kids to see Star Wars. So this film, yes, it was kind of made for adults to enjoy, but it's also made for the kids. To introduce a new generation to Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I think again, looking at that, it's not a bad movie. It's also again, it's a good movie.
The thing I love about that is now that we have all this technology, people are like, that movie sucks even more. But it's like, that's not fair because they didn't have some of the stuff we have now. Favorite Jar Jar moment?
Probably in the table of Tatooine, where he's lifting his tongue to the fruit, and then Qui-Gon catches it and says, "Don't do that again." That has been my favorite Jar Jar moment.
My favorite one is where he gets his tongue cut and the thing like, my tongue is fat. I love that.
So if you have a favorite Jar Jar moment, you probably don't, but if you do, tell us in the comments. If you think of any reason, a rebuttal to us, why our points are not good, why our points suck, tell us that in the comments as well. Or if you have a good point, if you think episode 1 is good because this, tell us in the comments below. We'd be happy to, get in a debate with that. Maybe at the end of our third part, where we talk about episode 3,
yeah,
we might actually answer some of your comments. If we have time, we might answer some of your comments and go into that. So
if you don't like Star Wars at all because you think it sucks and stuff, you should watch the Super Mario Bros. Then you have no excuse to say it sucks. I'm just kidding. But anyway, that was fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. We'll see you on our next event.
Quick announcement. We now have a P.O. Box. Yeah, if you want to send us a card, a letter, glitter bombs, tell us how much we suck. That'll be in the comments below, so you can write us letters there. Again, you favorite Jar Jar moment, why we're wrong or why we're right, tell us in the comments below. Lance will try. We'll definitely answer you on YouTube if we have time. We might even do a video addressing some of these comments. Putting your comments on screen, talking about them and everything else. Until then, we hope you enjoy this, and we will see you next time.